burger.
Happy Wednesday! Welcome to Screen Junkies Universe. It's Ed Greer Wednesday. Spencer Gilbert.
Hello.
I don't know what's going on there, but I like it already.
Just two dudes talking Fight Club in the morning.
Yeah. Dan Murrell.
Hello, I'm beverageless. I didn't get the memo.
And as always, you do not keep to the first freaking rule.
Oh, come on.
You come on.
Yeah, that's a great joke.
Are
That's
the
a great joke.
Oscars out of touch? Are the Oscars out of touch?
Why am I getting a finger?
I don't know.
What did I do?
I don't know. That was totally unfair.
I sat here silently.
That was just like a full-on shotgun finger approach. That was unfair. You know what? I retract that,
Thank
Dan
you.
Murrow.
Thank
I
you.
I'm gonna
You'll give it to me later in the
and then
show.
I'm gonna
I
do
already
this.
know.
What?
I'm gonna come right back to where it belongs, right here and here.
I'm dodging it.
Yeah, other late 90s movie, Matrix.
Good morning. Bullet time it. Star Trek news. We had a controversial ad got pulled from the YouTubes. Did you hear about this? Do you know about this?
No.
Yeah, let's talk about those Oscars. All right. Oh, man. Oh, everybody's upset about the Oscars. Ugh. But this is actually out of a conversation about the Emmys. Colin Jost from SNL is going to co-host the Emmys with Michael Chi, and they sat down with the LA Times to talk about that. And then they were just sort of talking about award shows in general, and some of Jost's comments were taken with extreme umbrage by the internet at large. He said,
No.
quote, I think most of the time talking about award shows, they're way too self-serious and focused on things that 99% of the country doesn't care about. At the end of the day, it's adults getting trophies. Why should that be taken seriously? Remember when movies like Gladiator won Best Picture? Why can't good fun things win and not just good artsy things? They're both good, and the fun ones are sometimes a lot harder to make. And people said, how dare you, sir? And this is on the heels, of course, of the changes announced by the Academy, including, but not limited to, a popular movie category that is as yet unclear what that exactly means. Ed, I was going to give you the floor, but you're rude. Dan?
I said it was a great joke. Did my voice sound sarcastic? Is this that Kids in the Hall sketch? Like, I got a speech
on
impediment.
punishment, sir. Dan,
We'll turn around. Yes.
what do you think?
I read the as always. I saw that Colin Jost trending. I'm like, oh great, what? And then I read this, and I was like,
did we decide on are there hashtags that we can put to make sure that it's not one of the things that we would jump to, like Colin Jost trending, parenthetical, not the following things?
no scandal, not dead.
No,
Yeah,
you need
scandal, not
emojis
dead.
for
And SND.
Me Too and death, because
Yeah.
when you see someone trending, it's one or the other 9 times out of 10.
Yeah,
So
we just need
get on that,
we
Jack.
need clarity.
Yeah, Jack, put that to the top of your priority
It
list.
will be.
You should
He has
focus
nothing.
on
He doesn't
nothing
care
else.
about anything else.
That's true. I read this and I was just like, it seems like an easy joke. Number one, it's like, remember when they used to give Oscars to the cool movies? And as a viewer on SNL, that's not shocking to me. And then Weekend Update's good. I don't know why the rest of the show can't be that good. That's a whole other thing. I just think that it's. I think it's hilarious that he's hosting an award show and talking about how stupid and meaningless award shows are. It's like, okay, cash that Emmy check then, or turn down the gig if you really hate award shows that much. That seems a little weird. That the whole I'm too cool. Only one person has ever pulled off the I'm too cool to host an award show bit,
Ricky.
and that was Ricky Gervais, and no one else should try because he did it perfectly. Yeah, I mean, he's cherry picking though, because there were movies like Gladiator, Return of the King won Best Picture, but small movies have won Best Picture up to and before that point. It's not like every Best Picture winner in the history of ever up until 10 years ago was some small indie movie. They've been on a run. I will grant that. They have been on a run where most of the ones have been small indie movies, but at the same time, studios have not been putting the same resources into making their huge movies awards contenders. So what are you going to do? I mean, it's weird to blame the Academy for elitism when Hollywood itself has sort of given up a lot of the ghost and making their big budget movies things that would probably catch the Academy's attention.
Ed, do you think there's any truth to the idea that award shows in general are A, silly, and B, a little out of touch?
Well, I mean, the out of touch thing, I think, is definitely on purpose. As Dan alluded to, the movie industry tends to be about spectacle right now. You can sell a movie if it's got enough spectacle and the writer and the director are big enough that you trust them to pull off spectacle. if it's a small story about you and your mom or whatever, that's going to be for award season, and they're going to put that in a certain package and market that a certain way and a certain smaller rollout and all this kind of jazz. And basically, the only reason why those movies still exist, frankly, is not because the public doesn't want them, but because the public doesn't necessarily need to, in their minds, see them in a movie theater. So, in order to keep people going to movie theaters to see, a lady and her cat against the winds or whatever.
Front runner this year.
But you know what I'm saying? Like these really artsy movies.
Someone poster that.
Lady and her cat against
And I want to be either the lady
Is
or
Against
the
the Wind's
cat.
the title, and it's starring a lady and her cat?
Just please,
Either way.
please, Photoshop that. I'm happy to be either the lady or the cat.
Against the Winds.
And make sure you get that wind effect right.
What are the winds? Are the winds of the winds of time?
Hey, they're
It's a metaphor,
Winds of
Rob.
change.
time, change, and she's actually on the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
It's all three.
Definitely some highlands of the
This is a
UK.
layered. Well, that's why it's up for so many awards. It's very layered.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So in that example, that sort of movie doesn't get a billion theater rollout. That movie doesn't open giant in China or whatever. That movie is for a specific set of people who go to see it in a movie theater to appreciate the fact that they can even go see it at a movie theater. And the people who are making that whole machine run are the people at these award shows, and it's been that way for about 30 years.
Spencer, what do you think? We talked a little bit about the popular category the other day.
Yeah. Look, I think that it's kind of a catch-22 or a zero-sum game, or however you want to put it, where every move you make towards accessibility is a step away from legitimacy or because the Oscars started as this insular industry awards show that wasn't even filmed, or maybe it was filmed. It wasn't broadcast on television. It was literally just for its heritage is just people working in the movie industry patting each other on the back. That's what that's its roots. So clearly they've cast their die and say this is like a show for all of the world to watch. And that gets further and further away from its original purpose. So they just need to make up their mind what they want to be. Although I think they've made up their mind that they want to be this pop culture phenomenon, but it's not what it is.
Well, I agree with you. I think that the fundamental question is who are the Oscars for? Because if it really is just for the industry, then you should, and I think that our guest the other day, Thomas Lennon, said this, then have it at the Hilton and shut it down. Don't broadcast it. But once you're going to broadcast it and you want it to be really like this, the event that it was in the past, you've seen that it's not. You've seen the ratings decline. Dan, you did an assessment of the ratings decline last year, and we traced that it was, in fact, when popular movies were a part of the show. So I sort of understand the double bind. Oscars can't win.
Yeah, they
the
can't win.
Academy can't win. Whatever they do, no one is happy ever with their decisions. And so to me, I felt like maybe 2 categories, and it's TBD. We don't know how it's going to play out yet. We'll open the door to be more accessible for the home audience and more palatable for those in Hollywood who want to see films like Moonlight get a light shine on them, which I do too.
And Against the
But
Wind,
it's
yeah.
But and again, well, more importantly, I think what Against the Wind had to say is a little more meaningful, if we're honest.
But what does that award, and this is what I'm looking forward to, getting the word from the Academy about what are the qualifications for this award and what is it awarding? Because
They
this
haven't
is
said.
what I don't understand. Because I think the Academy spokesperson said it was going to be called something like Outstanding Achievement in Popular Film or whatever. It's like, what does that mean? Because you are giving an award out for a concept. You're saying, I'm giving you an award for popularity. What does that mean? You're quantifying
but
an
you know what?
idea.
But you know what?
Popular,
I think it could be easily quantifiable.
Yeah, I think so too.
In that the ones with the robots and the capes is
No,
more. I bet you 'cause they don't
So
mean Pretty Woman.
Transformers is now
talking about-
eligible for
But
an
they
Oscar.
don't,
Okay.
I know they don't mean Pretty Woman.
Currently, best achieved. What the original categories were, and fact check me if I'm wrong, they were the very first year of Oscar. There were 2 categories, and one was best overall picture, and one was essentially like most artistically daring, like innovative or creative, and those were the 2 separate categories. So, which I think is actually a pretty interesting distinction there, and would even open the door for more films, but. what popular is actually, whether it's right or wrong, very easily quantifiable. It is assess the box office versus the popularity in audiences versus the popularity in critics.
International box office, domestic box office. If a movie was the #1 movie of the year, but domestically, but the critics hated it,
well, the truth is, it doesn't matter.
I don't think it would count. I don't think that. I think if you're looking at a movie, all of this is subjective. There's not a single category in the Academy Awards that is not ultimately a subjective decision that you're making. But if you look at the way that they're run right now, frankly, there isn't room for something like a Paddington or a Paddington 2 to be awarded.
But it did terrible at the box office, so it's not eligible?
But no. What I'm saying is, in general terms, the Academy Awards is a subjective assessment of what the best films of the year were. And currently, they lean almost exclusively, data will bear this out, to dramas. And if you look at a film that is incredibly well written, incredibly well made, that is a family film, it stands little to no chance at this point, whether it's popular or not.
I understand that. And all award shows are subjective. I understand that. But what I'm saying is that in order to establish this category, at some point, the Academy is going to have to set an objective criteria saying this is what qualifies as popular. And I don't see how you do that. I don't see how you take in every account of what popularity is and define this is what the definition of popularity is.
But the overall question, Dan, is like, are awards just in general, they don't make room for everything. They just
because
don't.
Not everything should be nominated for an award.
But it shouldn't.
That's the truth.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying everything should be nominated for an Academy Award, but they're currently. I think my real opinion is they're very silly, that this is much ado about nothing, that you are awarding people who have already won the game of life. Where's the award for the plumber that's cleaning the shit out of your toilet and making it possible for you to have a comfortable life? Where's the award for the garbage men? Where's the award for the people that are doing the work that we need done in this world that no one's willing to do, really, in Hollywood? You're awarding people that are already at such a high precipice of life, and now you get an award for it? The only single purpose of the Academy Awards is to bring attention to films that people might not have otherwise heard of, and hopefully boost the box office on films to help support this industry. That is their one and only purpose at this point, in my opinion. And you're not going to do that if you have a rapidly declining audience, because you have a series of people making decisions that are making them from a very insulated and isolated place that don't include. And by the way, not everything should get a nomination, but there are films that should get a nomination and don't, because they're not about the Gone with the Wind with the cat.
And I think you're watering it down, and I think you're closing the door for movies that are popular, that do get nominated for Best Picture, to be nominated for Best Picture, because they'll say like, Get Out, that's going to go in the popular movie category because that made a lot of money, and we don't have to put it in that category. And I think that a Best Picture nomination is still going to be more meaningful, and I think it closes the doors for popular films to get that legitimacy to be nominated for Best Picture.
What about, but we're currently, I think already the films that we see nominated disclude any number of incredibly well-crafted films. We very rarely, if ever, see comedies nominated that are not also dramedies. We don't see a lot of science fiction unless they have a heavy drama element. The Academy Awards are the best dramatic picture of the year currently.
So why is the solve
almost all of the time?
I have a proposal to fix the Oscars. You do best drama, best comedy, best action adventure, or which can include sci-fi, family films, etc.
I love it.
I would much rather. I would be way more in favor of that, if I'm being honest.
Push the mic off the desk. It's not a mic drop. It's a mic push up.
Audience picture. I think this is going to be a disaster. I think this is going to be an unmitigated disaster.
But with what consequence?
But also,
I'm going to predict that it doesn't last more than 5 years.
Yeah, but it's a new Coke. I'm dating myself, but this is what it's going to be. It's going to be a new Coke. New Coke came out. They said, "Hey, we changed the formula," and it shocked the system so hard they haven't messed with it since, and they're bigger than ever. I think that might be and I think really, Spencer, get famous. Really, because that plan is great, because it acknowledges that genre has taken a larger role in our appreciation of films. When my dad was a kid, Westerns were the superhero movie of his day. He'd watch people shoot each other in any number of configurations, any number of drawing styles, any number of horse stunts. dumbass would watch any number of Western pastiches put together for literally 50 years. Right?
Stunts.
That was the biggest horse stunts and dudes falling off roofs into convenient bales of hay. He would watch another damn thing that featured that every morning. And I'm just saying, back in the days, there was that movie, and then there was the movie about the lady and Jimmy Stewart looking at somebody somewhere. You know, they had distinct, different genres.
Can you have a classic film show, please?
I'm just saying, they had different genres back then.
Wait,
the murder
is that-
mystery, the observant murder mystery. I believe Mrs. McGillicuddy's moving a body. That used to be a freaking popular genre,
Wait a minute.
and now it is not.
So you just did, I feel like you just did It's a Wonderful Life, Vertigo.
Rear Window.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. McGillicuddy's moving a body. Oh, no. I better do a horse stunt. Get out of here.
Wait, that's Rear Window.
Yeah, the observant neighbor genre used to be huge, and now it's not. And I'm just saying, over time, we have to acquiesce to everybody's not watching a bunch of assholes on horses. Everybody's not watching a bunch of observant neighbors anymore.
We're watching people with capes.
We're watching people with capes. We're watching people punch people through buildings. We're watching wire work. Let's get with it.
Yeah, I agree.
But the irony of this is that this new category is coming at the expense of the categories in which those movies do succeed. The comic book movies and the genre movies, the Star Warses and the Dark Knights and the all of DC and Marvel movies succeed in the technical categories. Mm-hmm. They win for their sound because they're outstandingly crafted technical films. They win for their sound. They win sometimes for cinematography. They win for visual effects. Mm-hmm. And the Academy, not only are they adding this other category for popularity, they're taking all of those people who do get to go on stage and accept awards, and that's where you do see so many of the popular films win, and saying you get to accept your awards during the commercial break, and we're going to edit it down and show it later. So it's like, not only are you adding what I think is an unnecessary category, you're now shunting the categories where the people who do craft those films that are so popular, where they get that moment in the spotlight. Yeah. Now it's at the expense of them, which is the Academy saying to the people who actually craft those films, the movie is more important than you. We would rather give the movie the spotlight than you, and this is your career achievement, your moment in the spotlight.
I couldn't think of something more American. I couldn't think of something more American.
That is disrespectful.
That does reflect the film industry these days. The franchise rules. You are nothing.
Oh, you great director, writer, get out of here.
I agree with you, Dan.
Ron Howard
to me,
mid-speech.
that decision, the decision to shuffle off the more technical achievements is more problematic in my mind. But given the runtime of the show, I get why they did it from a producer. But I'm just saying that one is more.
I don't need to see that same clip of Peter O'Toole every year.
Sure,
Cut the montage.
The montage. A salute to movies.
But to be fair to people's very real concerns, and look, my boyfriend works in a technical field. I respect what they do, and I think they deserve their day. They don't get it. The stars that we see get it every day of their life. So I agree with you on that. I do wonder, though, in total, it's interesting to me because I've seen all of these, not you, I'm not talking about you here because I understand people's feelings and concerns and passion, but in the same article, people will underscore that the Academy Awards are ultimately very silly, and a tradition that is unworkable and in which they cannot win, and that it is, despite what anybody has to say about it, that a number of genres are cut out every year, including, like we've said, comedy, science fiction, action are cut out every year from any sort of consideration. And they're largely about their political campaigns that are very well funded by the people that are campaigning for people to win awards. Harvey Weinstein, back in the day, used to be very, very good at campaigning for Oscar. And in the same article, they'll talk with such extreme passion and fervor about how this decision spells doom. And I'm like, doom for a thing that you think is silly and doesn't make sense and is fixed. It doesn't make sense to me. That's where I'm a little bit confused about the reaction of the town in general, is that everyone, in the same breath, you will disqualify the merits and validity and importance of the Academy Awards, and yet be vitriolically upset that it's making a change to try and appeal to a wider audience.
Well, to your point, I wrote down a little note here. Elitism takes two.
Baby.
Yeah. Elitism takes two. It takes two people to set up an elitist. If I don't believe that these people are elite and their concerns are elite, and I don't believe that their awards mean anything, then they don't. That's how you kill a god. You stop believing in them. Whoa. And so that being...
Oh, somebody read American Gods.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I believe that if we en masse, as we seem to be, are going to divest ourselves from such fervor over these things, then they will go ahead and try to adapt as much as they can until they fall into dust. You know, and I think that that's going to be a natural progression of things. I think we need to get used to things going away.
Yeah, and changing and just not being what they were. And I don't know, like these are very like whatever sort of frothy golden icons that it should just be fun. Like it should be that's what it used to be. Sitting at home watching it, it was this window into a world that was completely, for me, I loved watching the Oscars. It was this window into a world that was completely untouchable.
The aspirational aspect is built.
It wasn't even aspirational.
Into it.
It was like, that's in a different
But
universe.
at the same time, when I see another universe, I want to be in there too.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what
true.
I mean?
You do. You have the fantasy.
So that's what I'm saying. Like it used to be people could do that, but now, I mean, our version of what a celebrity is not dictated by 16 executives anymore.
No, it's not. You're right.
So I think that's a thing that people are not talking about, and why this thing is losing steam. Yes, I do believe
Twitter.
if you look at it from data, yes, it is concurrent with the piano type jazzes always being the best picture. Meanwhile, Iron Man is
that is
shunted.
a great movie.
You know, of course. But to the people who like Iron Man a whole lot, sometimes they look at those movies, they don't quite understand them, they don't understand the pacing, and they don't want to invest that much in the story or whatever. But the bottom line is, I'm just saying, it seems like this is going this direction, and the Oscars are existing now to keep those movies alive. And maybe those movies are going to be VOD very soon.
I mean, again, like for the last couple of years, I love movies and I care about them. And so if the only thing for me that they can do, they can help people's careers. If they win an Academy Award, that can be a boost to their career. I'm sure it feels really great to win. But really, for the industry at large, is like, boost the box office a little bit, get people to see these movies they may not have otherwise heard. And I'm with the idea of, first you have to get them to watch the show. You need to get them in with a movie that they're invested in so they can feel included in the conversation. A lot of the movies that end up being nominated were not open near people. They weren't available to see. Get them included in the conversation, and then bring to light something like Boy Erased, bring them in with A Quiet Place, bring to light Boy Erased, and then on Amazon have that playlist of the Oscar-nominated films, and maybe they'll see them.
Well, that'd be a great thing for the Academy to do, is try to help people who are in food deserts as far as film.
Yeah.
Right? Get to see those.
Yeah. One thing they can do without changing things too much is just pick a host that has mass appeal. You don't need to change the show. I know they've tried, but and I guess this isn't the best example of it, but the Independent Spirit Awards for the last few years have had Nick Kroll and John Mulaney host them, and like, they're not indie film people at all. They're from completely outside that world, and it's hilarious watching them host that show. And you, like, as someone who hasn't seen all the indie films they're talking about, like, they're your guide through it. Like, watch their opening monologues, and like, they're very upfront about like, why are we here? We're not sure why we're doing this. Who are you? And they're holding your hand through this otherwise closed off elitist group of people.
Yeah, I feel like every time the Oscars try to do a thing with the host, though, it just doesn't.
Well, the stuffy people don't like it. They don't like to be joked at, you know.
It's always this weird back and forth between, we have to take ourselves seriously, or we're not the Oscars anymore. And it's this the same conversation that's happening now, or we have to adapt and be more popular. Dan, what are your feelings?
I think everyone knows by this point.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping you felt better.
I just feel like if you divide a certain category of films into popular, it just feels exclusionary to me, and it feels like the audiences, to me, are less likely to see the other ones in Best Picture, because the Academy itself is saying, like, these are the popular films and these are the artsy fartsy ones. Don't worry, you don't have to worry about these because these are the popular ones. And that's just how it feels to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think this is fraught with too much baggage, and I just don't see how it's going to work. I don't know.
Well, Spencer fixed it, and we fixed it for you, Academy. I know you're watching. Every member of the Academy watches this show, as a matter of fact. So instead of popular and unpopular films, which is now how the other category will be read, the things you watched and the other stuff, just do it by genre. Drama, comedy.
But then do you do like the best in show? There's like a second category for best picture of the best of the winners
best
of
of
all
the
those
best.
subcategories.
So it's like, then
like a funnel.
filters. Then those.
How do you even vote for that?
You know what you do is you have the categories, and then the winners from each category just get into a pit, wrestle it out, and
Just
whoever
the cast
comes
or
out,
crew or
they win Best Picture.
Blu-rays.
Whoever they elect to go up on stage to accept the award.
Okay. Yeah.
Accepting the award.
A lot more wrestlers and
Jason Statham.
Oh, yeah. Happy to accept this award for Moonlight.
Call Me By Your Name too just had Brock Lesnar in the background, just standing there for no reason.
Just ringers for the Oscar fight.
I'd watch it.
Yeah.
Now that's how you fix the Oscars, because I am watching the crap out of that show. Star Trek news, more Star Trek news for Dan. Ethan Peck has been tapped to take on the
Search for Spock.
The Hollywood Reporter. He's going to play Spock on Star Trek Discovery, and people are very excited. What do you think? Are you familiar with his work? He's the grandson of Gregory Peck.
That's wonderful for him.
Yeah.
Gregory Peck is a great actor.
We were just talking about elitism.
He has a great family lineage. I hope he had a pleasant upbringing.
I hope it wasn't a burden of any sort.
I have not seen his work. And I'm curious to see how, with all of the instability now around the cinematic Star Trek universe, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Discovery. I hope that show doesn't turn on the heels of Captain Picard. I hope that show doesn't just turn into a backdoor remake of the original Star Trek series, only because I feel like we had the cinematic reboot and you have the original series, and it felt like Discovery was going to, kind of blaze its own trail, but now it's very much crossing over with original series stuff. So, but we'll see. It's the question is really, how much are they going to lean on just the fact that they're returning these characters, and how much are they going to lean on let's go out and try to blaze our own trail and make a new exciting story.
You guys watch this at all? Are you watching?
No. I'm just curious how Alex Kurtzman has the time to run this show and Titans at the same time.
Very confused. Yeah, he's a busy guy.
Is he just giving half or a quarter of his attention to each one, and then the other quarters to his yacht and mansions?
I bet he does have a lot of yachts and mansions.
Yeah, it's got to be tough juggling
like,
all those franchises and watching all of them fall like pies to the face.
Can we look up his net worth? Because I feel like he is one of those people that's like secretly real rich.
Not so secretly. He's done every single franchise you used to love.
Transformers,
Dark Universe, Transformers,
I just
Dark
don't know
Universe.
how much he would have, because he did all of that with Orsi when he was partnered with Orsi, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much the writers of those things got paid as compared to the Michael Bays who had a cut of the toys.
Fair enough.
And he walked away with $75 million.
He and Akiva Goldsman they're crazy.
Oh wait,
rich
I might be thinking of Akiva Goldsman.
They're both.
Is he
They're
Titans?
both. Well, no, I don't know. But I just mean they both
Billy,
are
fact-check me on that.
They both seem to be executive producers of every
Everything.
I will
new
rescind half of what I said if it's Akiva Goldsman.
and yeah, I think they're both just stinking rich. Just the back end points on being a producer for 87 different simultaneous projects has to be pretty lucrative.
Yeah, because he and Orsi ended up being producers on all of the Transformers and Trek, right? Yeah.
And
I think so.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know what happened with Orsi when he had to depart the Star Trek franchise for many reasons. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
I personally, my girlfriend got the app so that she could watch Star Trek Discovery, and much like Jules from Pulp Fiction, because she watches it, I watch it.
Yes.
I'm pretty much a vegetarian because my girlfriend's a vegetarian.
Yes.
Not in real life. Okay.
Titans is Akiva Goldsman.
So
But
sorry.
Akiva Goldsman is also in the Star
One
Trek
of those.
Discovery. The Star Trek. I swear to God, Akiva Goldsman is one of the people in the Star Trek
He's
stuff
one
too.
of the billion
How do they
producers.
keep failing upwards?
Well, it's
there are more than 3 writers in Hollywood, and it's always Akiva, Alex, and David Goyer to do every single thing we love, and they're all mediocre.
Star Trek Discovery, Transformers: The Last Night, and The Dark Tower.
Dark Tower, great. Transformers, love it. Keep going. Give him Star Trek. Give him another TV show. Let's see what he can do with Superman.
Yeah, run him into the ground. But well, he'll spin him into the ground. Basically, my girlfriend got it to watch that. I watched all the episodes, and frankly, I could see how people are off put by the new interpretation of the Klingons. The Klingons are very militaristic, almost. They're like the Nation of Islam in space to a certain degree, because they're very much about their own. They're very much about look. These are my people. These are my missions. I don't really worry about combining with you guys or being your buddies. We're gonna conquer space. We care about these things. I'm not gonna bow to you guys in space. I'm not gonna come or show fealty to your space federation. I'm just gonna smash it and keep moving. And they're kind of like that. And I know people don't like that. They love Worf and they love the people who are very reasonable and yes, let's reason this out and sip some tea. They love that, but that's not the point of this Star Trek universe. At this point in the Star Trek universe is very Wild Wild West.
It's true.
And so they're interpreting a world where people haven't talked yet. We haven't sat down and said, these are core values. Do you share them? I share some of those, and try to find any common ground. It's a very militaristic, warlike situation. So a lot of people were turned off by that. I personally love it, and I connected with it a lot. I see the Klingons' points, and I see the Federation's point. And for the first time, it seems like they're showing that, yes, you can be evil and wrong, but still a person.
Relatable.
Yeah.
My issue with the Klingons, I thought character-wise it made perfect sense where they were. My issue with them was the 20 minutes of subtitled, very slow scenes per episode, all in Klingon. I'm just can we snap? Let's this diction is a little. Come on, we don't need 3 of these every episode. It was, and it was all opining on the same thing. It's like okay, let's shrink this down to one subtitled, slow-talking Klingon scene per episode. That was my issue with it.
And then a prisoner comes in and they have to talk in English to be mean to him, so that we hear the rest of the scene in English.
Do they not have like the Babelfish Hitchhiker's Guide thing in Star Trek?
No, Klingons. It's Klingons talking to Klingons.
You have to actually learn other languages in Star Trek.
But again, I think
do you not know how many people in this world are actually fluent in Klingon?
Do you know
in universe, is there no Bluetooth earpiece?
No.
There is, but not when
the Klingons are talking to each other.
It's like if you were talking with a friend, you wouldn't have that in.
Yeah.
Rosario Dawson speaks Klingon. Did you know that?
That's cool.
Yeah. That's a whole thing.
So anyway, the bottom line is the show to me is very, it shows a particular part of the Star Trek universe that I think the first one tried to touch on, this like Wild Wild West. Everybody knows that Star Trek's supposed to be Wagon Train in space, but it ended up being Monster of the Week, Lesson of the Week situation. This is really, okay, what about a war? What if a real war happened in space? What if a real Star War happened? All the casualties, all the spying, all that kind of stuff. They're really concentrating on that aspect of it for at least the first season. I think the subsequent seasons are going to be more about how do we contribute to shaping the rest of the universe. And I believe that due to the fact that they're doing a little loophole, and it seems like this is a new universe, they can traverse some of those things that happened during the time of the original series, but with a new modern take. It's almost like back in the early days of Ultimates in Marvel. The Ultimates were a great reinterpretation of the Avengers, and then they started getting all wonky and crazy. Mm-hmm. But the Ultimates is great. And I think this is the Ultimates of the Star Trek universe, and I'm on board.
All right. Well, you sold it more than anybody else. So YouTube pulled an ad for The Nun for being too scary. Oh, this is me a deadline. Oh, a jump scare came out. It scared everybody, and then complained to YouTube. Oh. And YouTube said,
Jeez. Get him, Roth.
How
Where's
dare
your
those
safe space now?
sensitive people protecting their children
no, it's true. Well,
complaining.
I was surprised because of kids. I was surprised that they ran this ad because of kids. So fair enough for an actual child to have been scared by this.
Is this in front of like those videos where like Elsa changes Spider-Man's diaper and stuff? Like, is that why?
I don't know what they put. Actually, you have to imagine they would have targeted it appropriately, but you can't stop what kids are actually seeing on YouTube. Or I guess you could do parental controls. Yeah. I don't no. But people
They're smarter.
complained. Kids are too smart for everything.
They're smarter than us.
Yeah, they're way smarter than us. Well, definitely
I saw
us.
eighth grade. It was
specifically. Oh my God. Yeah. I need like a translator for what they're talking about. So basically, YouTube said, we really appreciate you that bringing this to our attention. This ad violates our shocking content policy. It's no longer running. It's interesting because there was an ad campaign for The Strain a few years ago that people made a big hoopla over with the eyeball. And I have to admit, I got why that's gross, but I was also like, oh, come on. It's like, what is the big deal? It was gross.
I had to drive by that every single morning. I didn't complain about it, but
Ugh,
it wasn't
awful.
like pleasant to leave my home,
it.
turn left, and there's a worm coming out of someone's eye.
It was
Like,
an
oh,
effective,
good. Happy
but
Monday.
it was an effective campaign. It made you interested.
I've never watched
The Strain.
Yeah, it didn't work on me either. But.
I totally get if you're talking about, and that one too. It's like you can't stop a little kid from seeing that because it's on a billboard. So I get
I'm a
where,
man.
but you're a grown up. So I get where parents are concerned for sure. To your point.
I would be concerned. I would complain. I hate jump scares. If I'm watching YouTube, I'm not expecting
here it
some
comes.
dumbass ad.
It's a.
No, that's an a-hole move. That is an a-hole move, and I'm glad it got banned because it should have been.
Is this though a reverse, Streisand effect? Like now everyone's talking about The Nun more than we would have otherwise.
Probably, yeah. It's actually probably ended up being. I thought the same thing would have happened for The Strain, but apparently not. I think people probably are talking about it because they're talking about the ad. I don't know. I mean, like I said, if it comes to, I wouldn't want my child seeing that by accident, for sure. But as for me, I'm like, okay, I don't find that scary. Do you?
I don't think I've ever been scared of the whole touching on genre again. The genre of like some Catholic thing wants to beat you up. I'm not starting a religious debate. I'm just saying like somebody's daughter has the devil in her. Well, stay out of the house and leave her alone. I don't know what. I don't. Why is this? Why is this scary to everybody? I don't understand. She's not spider walking through my neighborhood breaking stuff.
I'm not scared of the nun. I don't like jump scares.
Yeah.
I hate jump scares, and that's a troll move. It should have been pulled. That's a troll move.
It is like those early internet things where it's like, see if you can get through this maze.
Yeah.
And like or like watch this loading bar, look closer, and then like something screams at you.
The Exorcist usually.
I don't know. It just doesn't bother me that much.
But it doesn't scare you. But there are people like me that I don't appreciate that. So I think I think, and it did violate their terms. That's what people were complaining about. It wasn't that the ad was scary. It's that YouTube has certain standards and guidelines for their advertising, and one of them was things that are intentionally meant to disturb or scare people, and it violated the terms. So it's by the rules.
They did what I don't disagree with them pulling the ad at all. I just think it's interesting who is bothered by it and who isn't. I will say if I was with a kid, I would be pissed.
I'm more bothered by the like having to change the volume thing. Like, what was?
But that's a money move. I'm sorry. That's the money. That makes it work. That's the whole thing.
Jump scares are predicated way more on the audio boost than the visual. Like if you watch the trailer for The Nun, I get so angry when I watch it because I don't like jump scares either because I have really good hearing. I'm like extremely auditorily sensitive. So every time I watch that stupid trailer, it's like, I'm like, hey, look, you don't scare me. You're just making me mad.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Anyway.
Well, when you're patrolling the streets of Hell's Kitchen tonight.
Is that a nun? It's just a cardinal. Never mind. Carry on.
Oh, Daredevil's mom was a nun. It comes full circle.
MCU confirmed.
Ooh, crossover. Somebody got mad
Like
at
Hot
us.
Pockets?
So somebody got mad at you and me. I just saw this briefly the other day, Spencer, when we were talking about it was Thanos was going to be like the Thanos story was going to be Y the Last Man, like the lead into, and somebody was like, Y the Last Man is a DC comic. I'm like, we weren't.
Yeah. No, relax.
But thank you for watching.
Also, isn't it Image? No.
It's Image, yeah.
Okay.
Or is it Vertigo?
I thought it was Vertigo. I thought it was Vertigo, which is technically DC.
Which is DC.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it is Vertigo.
Excuse me.
But still, it's like that wasn't.
Not the
We got caught. We just got caught in the trap.
Yeah.
That's what just happened.
Gotcha.
Guys, I don't want to upset Dan anymore today, but I'm going to have to because
There's something.
there's something we need to discuss.
There's a self-inflicted wound.
Yes.
I've dropped my pen.
Which is he's just leaving. Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm leaving.
He's not getting a bat.
Yesterday, the phrase "upstate New York" came up, in which someone argued with Dan about his use of the term "upstate New York" and finding a hole in the Avengers.
Yes. Here's what happened on yesterday's Honest Trailer commentary. Spencer was there as well. We were talking about how the Russo brothers always like to say they honest trailer proof their movies or want to, and we mentioned after we watched the trailer that there was one thing that I had noticed that didn't make it into the trailer, and I brought up was that in Ant-Man, they had established that the Avengers HQ was in upstate New York, and that in Infinity War, there's a shot of a big, as Tony calls a suit, and it blasts off from Avengers headquarters. And a lot of people saying it wasn't. It was, because I looked at the two buildings side by side from the two movies to confirm that it was the same building. It was the same building. And you could see the Manhattan skyline. And so I said, that was my nitpick for the movie, was that you said that there was in upstate New York, but it had magically moved to within sight of Manhattan. I didn't realize I was entering the Matrix when I said that, because shortly thereafter I started getting all these tweets saying, I live in upstate New York and I can see Manhattan. And I don't understand that. So I looked up what upstate New York is. And apparently, to some in New York, anything north of New York City is considered upstate New York.
Can I speak from an area, from my own experience? So I
Sure.
grew up in New York City, and anything outside the boundaries of New York City, we called upstate New York. And I mean Connecticut and Cape Cod. Like, literally anything outside of New York City, but certainly in New York State, we just called it upstate New York. It is geographically inaccurate.
Yes.
It is dumb.
It
makes no sense, but it is also really true.
I did some research on upstate New York, and it said upstate New York includes Albany, Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo, which I've circled on this. I brought charts. I have circled on this map. These are the cities that include, that it says upstate New York. However, upstate New York apparently includes, this is New York City.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, is there a way to get it? Can we get closer on this? This is New York City. And apparently, according to people in Manhattan,
Yes.
anything north of that line
Correct. Is upstate New
is
York.
upstate New York.
That's correct.
Despite the fact that all of these other cities, which are apparently also a part of upstate New York, are in actual upstate New York. This is southeastern New York. This is upstate New York. But apparently, some people think that this, because they live in New York, is upstate New York.
Right. It's
Let me tell you something about New Yorkers, Dave. And I'm not one of them, but they think they live at the absolute center of the world. It is Jerusalem. It is the North and South Pole. It is the alpha and the omega of the globe. And anything they think of directions relative to themselves.
So
I'm glad you brought up relativity, Spencer, because I have another map. This is a map of California, okay? This is Los Angeles, right? This is where I live, here in Los Angeles. If I were going to go have a delightful beach weekend in Santa Barbara,
Upstate.
I could not say I spent the weekend in Northern California,
But people
because
do.
Santa Barbara relatively is north to where I live. This
But that's apples
is
to oranges.
Northern California.
Upstate and northern.
This is Southern California, and a point in Southern California north of which I live. There is a thing called geography, Spencer, and it is objective.
But those are two different words.
Angelino.
Upstate is upwards, up the state, and northern is a cardinal direction.
I will agree that there are points upstate of New York at which you can see Manhattan, but that is not upstate New York. You have to go up into the state.
Well, but it is up. It is up in that it's technically on the map above New York City, so it's upstate.
It is
I would say this. I would say this to Spencer. It's like, I am owning how ridiculous New Yorkers are. 100%. There's a New Yorker magazine drawing that has like a map of the conceptualization and it's Manhattan and then Los Angeles is here, and Europe, and literally nothing else exists. And that is true for New Yorkers. And then you get out of there, and you're like, that's a dumb way to think about the world. But Angelinos are just as bad. They are. To Dan's point. Yes, everything is.
I can't wait to hear this.
Everything is oriented relative to Los Angeles, and it's the same thing for New York City.
Roth,
Everything,
we're in Los Angeles
How
right
so?
now.
because what you just said, Angelinos absolutely will call that Northern California.
I have
Santa Barbara?
I have lived here for 13 years, Roth. Not one time have I ever once heard one
Why
person
are
in
you
Los
mad?
Angeles.
I don't understand why you get mad
Because
about
it's a
this
bit,
stuff.
Roth. It's hilarious that I'm angry about this ridiculous thing. Not one time have I heard anyone in Los Angeles refer to Santa Barbara as Northern California. Not once. Not one time in 13 years have I ever heard anyone say, I went up to Northern California. Where? Santa Barbara.
People in Los Angeles orient the world. The term flyover state is used as much, if not more, in LA. I heard our friend.
That has nothing to do with
use
what
it
I'm talking
yesterday.
about.
No, but everything is oriented to LA and New York. The perception is that LA, and it's what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. The perception is that the insulated, isolated towns of Los Angeles and New York count. Nothing else really does.
So
and that is
This is
absolutely
obfuscation and cloak and
That's-
dagger.
no, it's not.
Have we discovered a new genre
Of what?
of thinking like a dismissive geography?
yes.
Yes.
Is that like a new genre
I'm not
of
saying that
study?
people in Los Angeles aren't elitist.
They are.
We are. We oftentimes very much are. Here's what I'm saying, and if you live in New York, I love New York City. I love the city of New York. I love to visit New York.
That's dirty.
I love being. She's too cool for her own city. I love going to visit New York.
That's
I
a
love
true
going
New
to visit
Yorker.
New York. However, nobody from after I find out about this upstate crap, no one in New York gets to call anyone from Los Angeles elitist or weird or whatever anymore. We acknowledge geography in this city, and you do not.
Can I
This
tell
city
you-
I
Respect the laws of geography.
Can I say something about how New Yorkers think of Angelinos? They don't.
That is so not true. That is so not true.
might as well
I cannot count the number of butthurt New Yorkers I've seen
they
online.
don't. They
Oh,
don't
Los
care.
Angeles. They think
Yeah.
they're so
No.
woke and aware of everything. We're in New York with
I
the real
grew up
problems.
there.
And you go enjoy your sunshine while we deal with darkness and light.
This is a DC and Marvel. What's happening here? This interpretation of New York is like, hey, you're wrong.
I've lived in Los Angeles for many, many years. I love California. I think California is one of the most beautiful states that we have.
She's gonna talk about New
in
York.
our
Here it
great
comes.
nation, besides Maine, which is equally beautiful. Have you guys been to Maine? It's so gorgeous. You should go to Bar Harbor. The water's so clean. The air is so fresh. I love
Is that
Maine.
in upstate Maine or
It's yes.
downstate Maine?
It's upstate New York, Maine /
exactly.
Maine. But I think that this false rivalry between New York and LA is actually not very real. And when I was in New York and I was talking about moving out here, a lot of people, there was a perception that people said you're going to hate it because people are very superficial.
Everyone there's
and
so fake.
blah, 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 which I have not found to be the case at all. I think that you find great people wherever you go if you are open to them, and you find great things to do and great things about every city that you're in if you are open to the discovery, even if it's not there right before you. A city that might not even look very beautiful, like Sao Paulo, Brazil, doesn't look very beautiful.
Wow, shade.
It doesn't, if you've ever been there, but it's a gorgeous city. Like underneath that, if you can find amazing little nooks and crannies of like street art and just gorgeous art and culture. So anywhere you go, there's something beautiful to discover. And I think these binary views of how people are in any particular place is unfair.
You know
so
what
that's
is
my
binary?
very real.
This is not upstate of anything except for New York City.
Okay, bye, JT.
I have to
Bye,
withdraw.
JT.
I'm withdrawing
Bye,
my
we're
nitpick,
done, we're
but I
done,
object
we're
on
done,
principle.
We're done. I'm done seeing my city
Ad
disparaged.
removed.
Oh, poor New York.
Oh my God, calm down. Go out. For the